that to receive the transcendental knowledge, that one has to be qualified. And the qualifications to receive the transcendental knowledge is that we have to be a devotee of the Lord. And Krishna also articulates that one should also have a relationship in the mood of friendship with the Lord, right? So both are important for us. And one doesn't need to be a scholar to approach the Lord and to become his devotee. What one needs is just faith. Adho Shraddha. So this entire process of bhakti starts with just a little bit of Shraddha. However weak that faith may be. In the beginning, it will be a little bit shaky, but that's okay. You just need a little bit of Shraddha to get started on this process. So after Krishna has said that he has revealed this science to the sun god Vivaswan, Arjuna, out of curiosity and out of the need for clarification for the benefit of us, he asks this question, which is, the sun god is senior by birth to you. How can I really understand that you spoke this many millions of years ago to him? So in response to this particular question, now in Shloka 5 and 6, Krishna is going to, for the first time, establish himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up until now, when we read chapter 2, Krishna has talked about the soul and the supersoul. He has said that the soul is eternal, you have always existed, I have always existed, all the kings on this battlefield have always existed and will continue to exist by taking on a new body. So in chapter 2, Krishna has established for Arjuna, what is Arjuna's identity? Now, Krishna is going to use the question asked by Arjuna here in Shloka 4 to establish his own identity now. Who is he? So let's look at Shloka 5. So we'll cover 2 shlokas today, Shloka 5, 4.5 and 4.6. So please repeat after me. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Janmani tava charjuna. Tanyaham veda sarvani. Natvam vetta parantapa. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Janmani tava charjuna.
Janmani tava charjuna.
Tanyaham veda sarvani. Natvam vetta parantapa. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu
Vacha.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Bahuni me vyatitani.
Janmani tava charjuna.
Janmani tava charjuna.
Tanyaham veda sarvani.
Tanyaham veda sarvani.
Natvam vetta parantapa.
Natvam veda parantapa.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Dasi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please repeat after me. Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan
The personality of Godhead said,
The
personality
personality
of
of Godhead
Godhead
said,
Bahuni,
Bahuni,
many,
many,
may,
may,
of mine,
of
of mine,
mine,
Yatitani,
Vyatani,
have passed,
have
past,
Janmani,
Janmani,
births,
birth,
Tava,
Tava,
of yours,
of yours,
Cha,
Ka,
and also
and
also
Arjuna,
Arjuna,
O Arjuna,
O
Mani,
Mani,
those,
those,
Aham,
Aham,
I,
I,
Veda,
Veda,
do know,
do know,
Sarvani,
Sarvani,
all,
all,
Na,
na,
not,
not,
Tvam,
Swam,
you,
you,
Vetha,
Veda,
no,
no,
Param Tapa,
Parantapa,
O subduer of the enemy.
subduer of the enemy.
Translation: the personality of God had said,
The personality of
Godhead,
God said,
many births,
many births,
both you and I have passed.
you and
I have passed.
I can remember all of them,
I can remember all of them,
but you cannot.
but you
But you
cannot.
cannot.
O subduer of the enemy.
O subduer of the enemy.
Purport. In the Brahma Samhita, we have information of many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there. Advaitam achyutam anadam anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayauvanam cha vedeshu durlubham adurlubham atma bhaktau govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So we discussed in the last class that this Brahma Samhita is a composition of Lord Brahma, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while he was traveling South India, finds just remnants of this chapter 5 composed by Lord Brahma in a temple called the Adi Keshava temple in Tamil Nadu. And he has it copied, and this is the only remaining portion of Lord Brahma's composition. So what is Lord Brahma saying here? I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. So what Lord Brahma is establishing here is the position of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is the original, Adi Purusha. He is absolute. He is infallible, Achyuta. So although the Lord, when he comes down into the material cosmos, will expand into unlimited forms, he is still considered to be the oldest, the original. But even though he is the oldest, how does he appear? He appears like a 16-year-old youth, eternally. So if you read the Shastras and the commentaries by the various acharyas on the Shastras say that Lord Krishna is 16 years and 5 months old eternally. And I believe Srimati Radharani is 15 years and 9 months old eternally. Nava Yauvanam. So always looking like a very young boy. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars. This is very important. So the Vedas state, and Lord Krishna himself states in the Bhagavad Gita, that one can only understand him by studying the Vedas. But here Lord Brahma is saying even the best of the Vedic scholars cannot really understand who the Lord is, because to understand who the Lord is, one needs bhakti. So the qualification to understand who the Supreme Lord is pure devotion. Not just any devotional practice. You should have perfected your devotional practice. Then the Lord, by his causeless mercy, may reveal himself to you if you have perfected yourself here. It is also stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ramadimurti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Parama Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So in another verse, Lord Brahma is saying the following. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is always situated in various incarnations such as Rama, Nrsimha, and many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. So here, Lord Brahma is saying that Krishna, when he appears, sometimes he appears exactly as himself, his original form, which is the two-handed form of Shyamasundara with the flute in his hand. And sometimes he may come in the form of incarnations of Lord Vishnu, as Lord Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, Vamana, Matsya, Kurma. But what we heard in the previous classes is that the Lord himself states that he comes millennium after millennium. What does this word millennium really mean? The word millennium means the Lord appears once in the day of Brahma. And Brahmaji's 1 12-hour period or daytime is equal to 1,000 Chaturyugas. 1,000 times this Chaturyuga cycle has to repeat for 1 12-hour period of Brahma to be over. And then similarly, his night time of another 12 hours is another 1,000 Chaturyugas. So totally just one full 24 hours for Lord Brahma is 8.6 billion Earth years. Which means when Krishna makes his appearance in our material cosmos that is ruled over by the Chaturmukha Brahma, we also understood that every universe has its own Brahma and each Brahma has different number of heads. Our Brahma happens to have 4. So 1 12-hour period of our Lord Brahma is 4.3 billion solar years, Earth years. So in that 4.3 billion Earth year period, Krishna appears once as his original self, which means during that 4.3 billion Earth years when Lord Brahma is awake, the Lord also incarnates into various forms of Vishnu. So if you read the Bhagavatam, there is a clear explanation on the hierarchy of who comes first. In our culture, we think there are so many gods, you can worship any god. Actually, that is not true at all. There are many demigods. There is only one God. How can there be so many different gods? So that means who's in control then? There can only be one supreme controller. And that supreme controller is Lord Krishna. That's the reason that Srila Prabhupada, every time he refers to Lord Krishna, he painstakingly uses the word Supreme Personality of Godhead so that you and I don't get confused with demigods. He is not an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. In our culture, somehow it has been propagated that Lord Krishna is one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu, but that is not accurate at all as per Shastra. Definitely he comes as Krishna. Krishna is not an expansion of Lord Vishnu. So our Shastras explain the very first expansion of Lord Krishna, when Lord Krishna has to perform service for himself, he expands himself as Lord Balaram. So Lord Krishna accepts service, but Lord Krishna expands himself as Lord Balaram to offer service. So when there has to be a relationship between two individuals, one becomes the servant and the other becomes the master, or sometimes the roles may change. But Krishna is always the master and Lord Balaram is always the servant, although the two of them are non-different. They are different, but they are not different. Then Lord Balaram expands into what is called the Chaturvyuha. 4 forms, 4 personalities come out of Lord Balaram, known as Vasudev, Shankarshan, Aniruddha, Pradyumna. Now, out of this Chaturvyuha, this Shankarshan is called the Moola Shankarshan. From this Moola Shankarshan originates Lord Narayana. This Moola Shankarshan creates all of the Vaikuntha planets. And after the creation of the Vaikuntha planets, this Moola Shankarshan transforms into millions and trillions of Narayana, along with Lakshmi Devi, who occupy all of these Vaikuntha realms. Now this Narayana then expands into the second Chaturvyuha. So we've talked about Krishna expanding into Balaram. Balaram expands into the first Chaturvyuha. Then from that Chaturvyuha, Shankarshan expands to Narayana. Now this Narayana is going to expand into another Chaturvyuha. Again, Vasudev, Shankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. So this second Chaturvyuha Shankarshan is known as Mahashankarshan. It is this Mahashankarshan that expands into Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu, through his breathing, creates all of the material cosmos, in which all of the conditioned souls have to live in, have to take birth in. Then Mahavishnu, also known as Karanodakashayi Vishnu, he expands into Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu can be understood as the super soul for every single universe in the material cosmos. So Mahavishnu breathes out all of the universes, but now within each of the universes there has to be procreation. In order for that to take place, first Garbhodakashayi Vishnu goes and occupies every single universe. So every single universe has a Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and it is from this Garbhodakashayi Vishnu's navel that a lotus arises, and there is a Lord Brahma created in every single universe. So every single Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, from the navel emanates Lord Brahma. Then Lord Brahma does the secondary creation. All of the Jivatmas, the trees, the birds, the animals, all of this is the responsibility of Lord Brahma. The Jivatmas are already there, but Lord Brahma has to create all of the various kinds of physical bodies that these Jivatmas have to occupy. So once these Jivatmas are created, then Garbhodakshai Vishnu expands himself into Kshirodakshai Vishnu. And this Kshirodakshai Vishnu is what we call Paramatma, which is each one of us has Kshirodakshai Vishnu residing within us as the witness for all of our activities. So Lord Brahma is saying here, yes, my dear Lord, you do incarnate as Lord Ram sometimes, at Narsimha sometimes, at Varaha sometimes. But I also know that you come originally as Lord Krishna as well. So Lord Krishna is not considered an incarnation. Sukadev Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Lord Shiva has stated this. Lord Brahma has stated this. Narada Muni has stated this. Yamaraj has stated this. All of the 12 Mahajans have identified who is Lord Krishna, and that there is nobody above, beyond, and or equal to Lord Krishna. That is Lord Krishna's position. And hence, Prabhupada painstakingly uses the words Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every time he has to translate the word Bhagavan or any other word referencing the Supreme Lord, so that it is distinct from all the other expansions and incarnations. Right. So in the Vedas also it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color, yet still remains one. All those multiforms are understood by the pure, unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. So Brahma himself is saying in the first shloka that we just read, that just studying the Vedas is not going to help you understand who is the Supreme Lord. No doubt one can study the Vedas, but more important than that is to become a devotee of Lord Krishna. Vedeshu durlabham adhurlabham atma bhaktau. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord. And whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. So Arjuna is considered to be a Nitya Siddha. So generally, the souls are categorized into two. There are the Nitya Siddhas and then there are the Nitya Bhaddhas. The Nitya Siddhas are eternally self-realized souls. They are pure. The Nitya Bhaddhas keep coming into the material cosmos to occupy various bodies. So Arjuna is considered a Nitya Siddha. So anytime the Lord comes down, whether in the form of his incarnations or in his original form, he is always accompanied by some of these Nitya Siddhas from the spiritual world. So that when the Lord gets ready to perform his pastime, there are various people who are putting out a play on the stage. Everybody has a role to play. So similarly, when the Lord comes down, he comes down with his associates. And Prabhupada uses this beautiful analogy of how when a king travels throughout his kingdom, generally a coterie of ministers accompany him. His security guards accompany him. Similarly, when the Lord comes, generally he doesn't come by himself. His associates from the spiritual world come to assist him in his pastimes. And that's what Prabhupada is writing here. Arjuna is one of these devotees, and in this verse it is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivaswan, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. So even though you are a self-realized, liberated soul living in the spiritual world, you are still not God, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. The Lord is described in the Brahma Samhita as infallible, Achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself, even though he is in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord. But by the divine grace, a devotee of the Lord, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. We discussed in the earlier class the difference between a devotee and a demon. This is not a material assessment of the difference between a devotee and a demon. This is strictly based on the spiritual platform. A devotee is one who has surrendered and accepted Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord. A demon has not. That's the only difference. Of course, that's a significant difference, but that is the difference between a devotee and a demon from a spiritual calculation. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demonic brains. So we discussed how the Mayavadis claim that all of us are the Lord. We've just forgotten because we've come under the influence of Maya Devi. So on the one hand, they say Krishna is the Supreme Lord. On the other hand, they say Krishna is also an eternal soul. And when he appears, he has also come under the influence of Maya Devi. That's not possible. How can somebody be called God and then he comes under the influence of one of his own energies? It's not possible. So the Lord clearly explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he has what is called the Tatastha Shakti, which is you and I, which we are referred to as, Prabhupada translates that as marginal potency. Marginal means we are standing between the Lord and Maya Devi. If we want, we can interact with Maya Devi. If we want, we can interact with Krishna. That's the only two choices we have. And when we interact with Maya Devi, we are conditioned. It means we have occupied a body in the material cosmos. Krishna also says that this Maya Devi is his inferior energy. So the Tatastha Shakti or the Jivatmas are considered to be superior to Maya Devi. Maya Devi, Krishna refers to in the Bhagavad Gita as that inferior energy of mind, represented by Durga Devi. So how when Krishna comes, he can be under the control of Durga Devi? Not possible. That doesn't make sense. So we reject that logic, that Krishna comes under the control of Maya Devi, his inferior energy. Then Krishna also talks about his superior energy or his internal potency, represented by Srimati Radharani and sometimes represented as Yoga Maya. So hence Krishna is saying, when I come, I remember everything. But when you come repeatedly, you are not going to remember everything. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demonic brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of the body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Sachidananda body. He is Advaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. So two important concepts to remember here in the shloka is the Lord says, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. Two concepts covered here is reincarnation and incarnation. Reincarnation applies to the Jivatma. Incarnation applies to the Supreme Lord. So the two are not on the same platform. So this is the concept between the Jivatma versus the Paramatma. The Jivatma is forgetful, the Lord is full of knowledge. We may forget our past lives because our memories are linked to the physical body. So every time we change the body and we occupy a new body, out of the Lord's will, if he wants us to remember the past, he will give us that facility. If he doesn't want us to remember the past, then he'll make sure that we don't remember our past lives. So death and birth are very traumatic experiences, and so is life. Life also has ups and downs. So the human body has an innate capacity, a psychological mechanism to survive in spite of difficulties and trauma. So the other reason that we are so forgetful, even in just one life, is because we are fallible. Our memory is volatile, and we can't even remember what we did yesterday at the same time. So this is the faulty nature of our instruments. So death and birth are like these memory wipers. But when Krishna comes, his body, mind, and soul are all the same. There's no distinction. So we'll move to the next shloka, 4.6. So please repeat after me. Ajopi san avyayatma.
Ajopi san avyayatma.
Bhutanam ishvaropi san.
Bhutanam Ishvaro san.
Prakritim swam adhishtaya. Sambhavami atma mayaya. Synonyms: Ajha, unborn, api, although, son, being so, avyaya, without deterioration, atma, body, bhutanam, all those who are born, Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord, api, although, son, being so,
being so,
Prakritim, in the transcendental form,
the transcendental form,
Swam,
form
of myself,
of myself,
Adhishtaya,
Adhishtaya,
being so situated,
being so situated,
Sambhavami,
Sambhavami,
I do incarnate,
I do incarnate,
Atma Mayaya,
yeah,
by my internal energy.
by my internal energy.
Translation: although I am unborn
Although I am unborn
and my transcendental body never deteriorates,
and my transcendental body never deteriorates,
and although I am the Lord of all living entities,
and although I am the Lord of all living entities,
I still appear in every millennium
I still appear in every millennium
in my original transcendental form.
in my original transcendental form.
So if you go back to the Brahma Samhita, in one of the other verses, verse 38, Lord Brahma writes as follows: Premanjana churrita bhakti vilochanena santah sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. What is Lord Brahma saying here? I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. So Brahma is re-emphasizing that if one wants to understand who the Supreme Lord is, although he is inconceivable, the Shastras accept that one cannot really understand God. The Acharyas accept that one cannot really understand God. So then we may ask the question, so why on earth should we read the Vedas at all? Krishna is saying the ultimate purpose of the Vedas is for you to understand who I am. But then after you read the Vedas, you come to the conclusion that you cannot understand him. So then why waste time? Here, Lord Brahma is giving the solution as to who can really even attempt to understand who the Supreme Lord is. What is that qualification? Premanjana churrita bhakti vilochanena. Love. Your eyes have to be anointed with love. Eye means not the physical eye. But if one wants to see Krishna, one needs to be his pure devotee. So within their hearts, when they are worshipping the Lord chooses to reveal himself to them. So the inner eye has to be tinged with pure love of Godhead. Now, who is Bhagavan is also defined in the Puranas. Various Puranas, but we'll just look at one such shloka in the Vishnu Purana. This particular shloka from the Vishnu Purana is often referenced by Srila Prabhupada in all of his books. So this particular shloka is composed by Parashara Muni. Parashara Muni is known as the father of astrology. He is also the father of Veda Vyas. In the Vishnu Purana, he writes, Aishwaryasya samagrasya Viryasya yashasa shriyaha Jnana vairagyayos shannam iti bhagam gana. So he's defining Bhagavan. What does the word Bhagavan mean? The word Bhagavan means one who possesses these 6 opulences in full. Aishwaras, Yashasya. So the Lord is all powerful, all wealthy, all famous, all wise, all beautiful, and completely renounced. So this is the definition of Bhagavan. Bhaga means opulences, and Van means one who possesses these opulences. So Parashara Muni is saying that there is a definition of Bhagavan. Who can you call Bhagavan? Of course, in our mundane material world, there are a lot of gurus who call themselves Bhagavan. But that's Bhagavan with a lowercase b. There is only one Bhagavan with the uppercase b. And this personality is Lord Krishna. Why? Because he is the cause of all causes. He owns everything. He's all wise because he is the source of all knowledge. He's all famous, maybe not with you and me, but the rishis know who he is. The devatas know who he is. He's all beautiful. He's the most powerful. And yet he's fully renounced. So it has been analyzed how we possess all these opulences, and it has been found by the great sages that Krishna is the possessor of all opulences, all beauty, all wisdom. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Satchitananda Vigraha. The supreme possessor is Krishna. Satchitananda Vigraha. Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Anadiradir, he is the origin of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam, he is the cause of everything. As we mentioned earlier, that all of the Mahajans and all of the Acharyas of all the Sampradayas have accepted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a verse that talks about what is the qualification that one needs to become a devotee of the Lord. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, which means we have to give up all designations. You know, I am Indian, I am a woman, I am a mother, I am CEO, this, that, and the other. All these designations that we identify ourselves with on the bodily platform, all those bodily platform designations have to be given up. Sarva Upadi. Upadi means designations. Sarva means all. Vinirmuktam. We need to be free from all these material designations. So what is the only designation that we will then have? That is, we are nothing but eternally the servants of the Supreme Lord. So by practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will slowly over a period of time give up, or give up meaning you will become detached from these material designations, and you will only be attached to one designation, that I want to be the most perfect servant of Lord Krishna. Krishikena Krishikesha. Sevanam. Sevanam indicates activity, devotional service. Bhakti Ruchyate. The translation of the shloka is as follows. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the services of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all senses. The Master of all senses is called Hrishikesha, which means all of our senses should be used to serve the Master of all of our senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is we are freed from all material designations. And then one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So these are the qualifications that one needs to have to begin to understand who is the Lord. So let's quickly read the purport. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, He remembers everything of his many, many past births, whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. If someone is asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at that same time one day before. And yet, men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains his Prakriti or his form. Prakriti means nature, as well as Swarupa or one's own form. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body, as the common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever he appears, he does so in the same original body by his internal potency, Maya. In other words, Krishna appears in this material world in his original eternal form, with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is the Lord of the universe, it still appears that he takes his birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home. Or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us, although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future. Neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, his appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think the sun has set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always in its fixed position. But owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful, knowledge by his internal potency, and he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet he still appears to take his birth in multi-manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking his birth, he is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayana. This is to Devaki and Vasudeva, with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy, bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. The word Maya or Atma Maya refers to the Lord's causeless mercy, according to the Vishvakosha dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all of his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self. or between his quality and body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. So here the Lord is saying, he's establishing here that he is the cause of all causes. He is the supreme Lord. All the jivatmas emanate from him. Sarva karana karanam. He is the cause of all causes. And the Lord himself is stating that he appears. And he's further stating that he appears in his original form. So this is how Lord Krishna is using the question asked by Arjuna to establish his own identity. He is Aja, unborn, avyayatma, imperishable. So both the soul and super soul are both unborn and imperishable, yet there is a difference between the super soul and the soul. And one of the ways in which we can understand the appearance and disappearance of the Lord, I think I had posted a video, a very short video of my Guru Maharaj. I think it was a maybe 4 or 2 minute video, where he was saying, in the spiritual world, everybody is self-realized. So if you really want to preach and tell people, this is the way you should go to come back to the spiritual world, well, there's nobody you can preach to in the spiritual world, because everybody is self-realized. So what are you going to do in the spiritual world? Other than serving the Lord eternally in his pastimes, you really can't preach in the spiritual world. So if you want to preach, you have to enter the material cosmos, because that's where the Nitya Baddhas are occupying. So if you want to enjoy preaching, you have to be in the material cosmos. There's no use of you being in the spiritual cosmos, because everybody's already self-realized. They already know all this. They're already practicing it perfectly. And furthermore, my Guru Maharaj was saying, well, if you want to really save the demons, well, there are no demons in the spiritual world. Where are all the demons? The demons are actually here in the material cosmos. So to save the demons by preaching, you have to come here. So sometimes the Lord comes by himself to do this preaching activity. Sometimes he sends his Nitya Siddhas. And this is what the Nitya Siddhas do. They come frequently at the request of the Lord to preach, to establish a process to help the Jivatmas to get out of this mire, quagmire that we've created for ourselves, these traps that we've created for ourselves, to help us get out of this body and go back to the supreme abode. I was telling in the class this morning that Srila Prabhupada himself, astonishingly, in one conversation with his disciples, he says that I did not want to come here. And at that time, I believe Srila Prabhupada was in Los Angeles. And his disciples were very worried. They thought, had we done something wrong? Is Prabhupada not happy? Are we not taking good care of Prabhupada? Why has he made this statement saying, I really did not want to come here? So they are very puzzled. Why is Srila Prabhupada making this statement? So they asked Prabhupada, what's the matter? Why are you saying this? And at that time, Prabhupada clarified by saying, actually, I told Krishna, I don't want to come here. This is a God-forsaken place. I want to be in the spiritual world serving him. And then Prabhupada says, but Krishna insisted that I had to come here, and therefore I've come. So Prabhupada himself was revealing that he had come into the material cosmos at the request of the Supreme Lord. So these Nitya Siddhas, the Lord will send them on a little journey. Go capture some other souls and come. Go do that, because it looks like they need help. So frequently, the Lord will send his representatives, his pure devotees, to come and help us get out of this prison. that we are in. So now Krishna has said, by studying the Vedas, you get to know me. But then at the same time, the Vedas conclusion is that one can never know God. So in 7.26, Krishna, when he speaks to Arjuna, he says the following: Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. So Krishna is saying here, oh Arjuna, as a supreme personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities. Krishna knows every one of his children. And there are trillions and billions of us in all of the universes. Imagine, he knows every one of us. And then Krishna says, but me, no one knows. So Krishna himself is saying, I know all of you. I know what you did in the past. I know what you're doing now. And I know what you're going to go through in the future also. I know everything. Nothing is concealed from me. But me, Krishna, nobody knows me. And in a shloka earlier, one shloka earlier to this, 7.25, Krishna says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudhoyam na bijanati loko mam ajamavyayam. So Krishna has said in an earlier shloka, I am never manifest to the foolish and the unintelligent. So Krishna himself is saying that those who are foolish and unintelligent, who are the foolish and unintelligent? Those who have not surrendered to him. For them, I am covered by my internal potency. And therefore, they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So Krishna himself is using the word mudha to categorize such individuals, jivatmas. He's saying the foolish think I am just an ordinary person. And Krishna says, if they do not accept me and they don't approach me with devotion, then I cover myself up with my yogamaya potency. So when the jivatma takes birth here, the jivatma is covered by Maya Devi. But when the Lord comes, not all jivatmas accept him or acknowledge him or bow down to him because they are not ready. At that time, Krishna says, then the yogamaya curtain covers me. So this is why Duryodhan, although the Lord personally goes to him and tries his best to get this war to be scrapped, tries one last time. Duryodhan never acknowledges the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Not once. So, if you are not ready to accept the Lord will make it perfectly convenient for you to forget him. Therefore, we must remember the principal instruction. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. If you forget Krishna, we are in a whole lot of trouble. Whole lot of trouble. So coming to the point, various shastras say various things about how one cannot really understand who the Supreme Lord is. So there is in the Samaveda, one of the Upanishads within the Samaveda is called the Keno Upanishad. The summary of a couple of shlokas is that we can never know God, and those who claim to know God actually don't know God, and those who have understood that nobody knows God have actually understood God. Then in the Brihadaranya Upanishad, there is a statement or shlokas. The summary of that shloka is, God is incomprehensible. Nobody can understand him. Then in the Kathopanishad, there is a statement that says, God is beyond your logic and argumentation. We cannot use our logic to understand God. We cannot argue philosophy this way and that way to understand who God is. Then in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a statement that says that your intellect cannot grasp God. the Bible also, in other scriptures also, there are similar statements. In the Bible, there is a following verse that my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways, for the heavens are higher than earth, and my ways are higher than yours. The Quran also says that only the Lord understands himself. And the Guru Granth Sahib also says, my Lord, you alone understand who you are. So the Lord keeps himself covered. Even with pure devotees, they are not able to fully understand him. So essentially the conclusion is that God is unknowable. So to the original question, if God is unknowable, why should we waste our time trying to understand who he is? Why bother with the Vedas at all? For a simple reason. If we cannot know who God is, how can we establish a relationship with him? To love someone, we need to be in a relationship. And to be in a relationship, for that relationship to work, you need to know little bit information about that person. So the Vedas are there for us to understand who is the Lord. Where does he live? What are his attributes and qualities? What is our relationship with him? So who should we ask all these questions? Because you and I are not qualified to read the Vedas on our own. That is where the Guru comes into the picture. So knowledge can lead us to some amount of faith, but there is also this risk of what is called Jnana Abhiman. Too much knowledge without service attitude can lead to pride. And that pride is our downfall. So just understanding theoretically about the Supreme Lord is not sufficient. We have to practice, and that practice comes in the form of bhakti. So unlike in the material world, people advertise their qualifications. I am such and such, I went to such and such a college. These are the various degrees that I've acquired. So, I'm well qualified to help you. But the problem with saints is that they don't have any signboard saying, I am a saint and I am well versed in the Shastra. Come to me, I will take you back to God. Saints never advertise themselves like this. So how do you approach the Guru? How do you know who to take up as a Guru? Well, the answer is given by the Lord himself. In this 4th chapter, Krishna says, the Guru is a self-realized person. And we discussed in the last class that a Guru will not say anything different than what the Lord has already revealed. The Guru will simply, like a parrot, repeat what the Lord has already said, which is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So we can accept such a Guru into our lives, try and serve this Guru submissively, and one must take up some seva. We must surrender to Guru, and by surrendering to Guru, we are surrendering to Krishna, and the Guru introduces you to Krishna and teaches you all about who is the Lord and how you can love him and serve him and get to know him better. So when we don't have a Guru in our life, then we should worship the Chaitya Guru. The Chaitya Guru is the Lord sitting within you as the super soul, and ask him for guidance to give you the Guru that you need. So one cannot understand the sun by using a torchlight to examine the sun. That is absolute foolishness. So similarly, one cannot understand the Lord through our own faulty instruments. So the problem for us is that the reason we are unable to understand who the Lord is because we have faulty instruments. Our knowledge and everything in us is corrupted. And to slowly clean up this corruption, one needs to take Guru and begin to follow the instructions given by the Guru, so that slowly this dirt and filth that we have accumulated over many, many, many years, through many births, can slowly be cleansed so that the Lord can remove his Yogamaya curtain. And once we achieve that pure devotional service, he can then reveal himself to us. So we'll stop here.